welcome to my channel. I shall be teaching computer science for 2nd PUC, and this is the syllabus as per the Karnataka Pre-University Board. Let me start with an important chapter, Object Oriented Programming, which is called as OOPS. So your OOPS is a common name abbreviated as Object Oriented Programming, and we shall see what is the marks distribution from this chapter. You can expect one question which weighs about 2 marks, and you can also expect one question which weighs about 5 marks. Altogether you can expect 7 marks from this single chapter. At the end of this video, I shall also be discussing about the frequently asked questions for your annual examination. Generally what you call it as an important questions which are asked for your examination. So let me start with your chapter, Object Oriented Programming. So we have two different types of programming approaches. One is object oriented program, the other one is procedure oriented program. So in this video I shall be discussing completely related to an object oriented programming concepts, like what are its characteristics, what are the advantages of your object oriented programming, what are its limitations, and where do we use this object oriented programming or applications of your object oriented programming, and how do you differentiate between your object oriented program and procedure oriented program. Now, how do you define your object oriented program, or OOPS? Generally we call it as an OOPS. Your OOPS is a modular approach which is specially used to design and develop a program using a concept called as an object. So we make use of an object and we design and develop a program, and this is a modular approach. So in your first year PUC you might have learnt about this modular approach, and generally what we call it as a module. These modules are the self-contained collection of programming units. They are the smallest programming units where you can use this modular approach to design and develop a program. So I'll just repeat this. Your OOPS is a modular approach which is used to design and develop a program using a concept called as a object. So in the upcoming slides let me explain what is an object. Now, which are the different programming languages which comes under this object oriented programming? So here we have some of the examples. So C++ is an example for an object oriented program. So Java is again an example for a object oriented program. We have C#, we have Python, you have n number of programming languages which makes use of this object oriented programming. All of them makes use of your modular approach where you can design and develop a program. So we shall see what are the characteristics of your object oriented program. So these are the different characteristics where we also call it as a basic concepts of your object oriented program. Now since the name itself says that object oriented, where your object itself is an important characteristics of your object oriented program, and the second characteristics is classes. Third one is the data abstraction. Fourth one is data encapsulation. The fifth one is an inheritance, then polymorphism, dynamic binding, message passing. So these are the different characteristics of your object oriented program. Let us discuss one by one. What is this object? How do we define this object? Any real-time entity which do have some characteristics and behavior is what we call it as a object. So what is this characteristics and what is this behavior? So I have a simple example here. Car is considered as an object. See, any real-time entity. See, real-time entity, it can be a person, it can be a table, it can be a pen, it can be any material. You can call it as an object. And if an object is being, when I say an object, then an object should have a characteristics and behavior. So let me consider a car is an object. Then what are its characteristics and behavior? The characteristics which are associated with a car is the model of the car, when the car was launched, and what is the color of your car. So these three are the parameters which can be considered as the characteristics. Then what is the behavior? Behavior is nothing but what operation that your car performs. So I can start the car, I can accelerate the car so it moves, then I can apply brake so that your car stops. So whatever the operation that you perform using an object is what we call it as a behavior. And generally, technically speaking, your characteristics are called as data members and your behavior is called as member functions. Member functions in OOPS. So this is a general statement. Your object oriented programming has a very important feature, that is your object, where your object is any real-time entity with some characteristics and behavior, where we call this characteristics as a data member and the behavior as a member function. So an example for your object is, if I consider a car, I can call the model, year and color are the data which are associated with your car, and the function, what function that it performs or what is the behavior of your object is your start, move and stop. So this is a very important characteristics of your OOPS which will help you to design and develop your program. So we'll move to the next characteristics of your OOPS, that's your classes. Now, as we have discussed in the previous slide, that your object is any real-time entity with some characteristics and behavior. Now, if I would like to create that object, then we need a blueprint. We need a prototype. So class is one such type of a prototype, or it is a blueprint which will help to create an object which has a similar characteristics. As I have discussed, the characteristics are called as a data members and your behavior is called as a member functions. To create this blueprint, definitely I need a prototype where your class acts as that prototype, which helps me to create an object having this similar kind of characteristics. So we shall move on to the next characteristics of your OOPS, that is data abstraction. So data abstraction basically refers where you represent only the essential features but you hide the background details or background explanation. So only the required essential features are being displayed but you do not provide the background details. Say, coming to the car, when I purchase a car, so you know what is the car color when it was being manufactured and whether it is a petrol vehicle or it's a diesel vehicle, and you know few details of the car, but you definitely will not come to know how a car engine works. So I'll take one more example. If I have brought or if I have purchased any electronic goods, every electronic goods has been given with a manual, where this particular manual provides an information how it has to be connected and how it has to be used, but the manual will never give you an information how this particular electronic goods works. So only the essential features are being represented and the background details are not being provided. You hide all your background details. So that's how you define your data abstraction as. So data abstraction represents or refers, it's an act of representing only the required features or the essential features without including any of the background details. So moving on to the next characteristics, that is your data encapsulation. So if I would like to provide a security, the important feature of your object oriented program is where it deals with the data. Its priority is always data rather than the function. So how my data has to be protected? So to protect your data or to hide your data, I need to wrap up my data and function into one single unit, and you can do that using your data encapsulation. So data encapsulation is an essential characteristics of your OOPS, which helps to wrap up your data and function into one single unit, enabling data hiding. So this is very, very important, where what you can expect, where your data can be hidden so that the external functions will not be able to perform any activities or modify any values on your specified data. Moving on to the next characteristic is your polymorphism. So poly in the sense many. So you can say that it is an scenario where one entity is represented in many forms, or it can also be said as it's an ability to take more than one form. So let me consider an example. See here, area is one entity which can be represented in multiple form. Say I have to calculate an area of a circle, I have to calculate an area of a square, and I have to calculate an area of a rectangle. The name of the function is same. What I have to do? I have to just calculate the area, but when I have the same function, the function I can use the name of the function to calculate the area of a square. I can calculate the area of a circle. I can also calculate the area of a rectangle. So you can notice the name of the function is same, but which are represented in a multiple forms. So area is one entity which helps you to calculate an area of a square. You can calculate an area of a rectangle, area of a circle. So you have, these are your different entities. So area is one single entity which is represented in different forms, like area of a square, area of a circle, and area of a rectangle. So moving on to the next characteristics of your OOPS, that's inheritance. So how do you call this as an inheritance? When I say a word inheritance, inheritance always represents, it's a relationship between a parent and a child. Parent and a child. So where a parent characteristics and the properties are being inherited to the child. The child always acquires the properties of the parent. So I can define your inheritance as it's a process by which an object of one class acquires the properties of another class. So here your parent class and the child class, we have, when I say inheritance, the child always acquires the properties of a parent class, and this parent class is called as base class, and this child class is called as derived class. So I can derive this as, or I can define it as, where it's a process where one class or your child class acquires the property of another existing class called as a base class, or it's also called as a parent class. So one class acquiring the properties of existing class is what we call it as a inheritance. So you have two different types of classes. One is a base class, the other one is a derived class. So what makes the difference between this base class and derived class? So base class is also called as a superclass, where it is an existing class whose properties are being inherited to new class. So base class is an existing class which is also called as a superclass whose properties are being inherited to newly created class. Then at the derived class, so derived class is where the properties of an existing class are being acquired. So it's a class whose properties are acquired from an existing class, where we know that the existing class is also called as a base class. So derived class basically acquires the properties from the base class. Hence your derived class is called as a subclass, where your base class is called as a superclass. So subclass acquires the properties from the superclass. The very important difference that you can notice compared to your base class and the derived class is where basically derived class acquires the properties from the base class, and in addition to it, the derived class can also have its new properties which are not present in the base class. So where your base class has set of properties, and that properties are being inherited to your derived class. But when it comes to the derived class, since the derived class acquires the properties of your base class along with the properties of the base class, derived class can also have its own new property which does not exist in the base class. So that's about your classes. One is the base class, the other one is the derived class. So moving on to the next characteristics of your OOPs, that is dynamic binding. Before knowing what is this dynamic binding, so let me give you a brief description about what is a binding. So binding basically refers to, it's a linking of procedure call to a code which has to be executed in response to a subroutine. That means, see here, so a code which is being linked, or a procedure call which is being linked where your code has to be executed. So you are going to bind these two things together. One is the procedure call, the other one is the code which has been associated with this, is what we call it as a binding. And to go forward with what is this dynamic binding, where the code which has been associated with the procedure call is not known till the execution time. Then this method is applicable in your object oriented concept. So whatever the code that is been associated with the procedure call is not known, it has been kept hidden till the runtime or the execution time. So this is what we call it as a dynamic binding. So binding refers to, it's a linking or binding your procedure call to the code in response to a particular subroutine, and where dynamic binding is where the code associated with your given procedure call is not known till your runtime. So we have the last characteristics of your OOPs, that is your message passing. So to be very simple, and when you have two different objects, certainly an object can communicate with another object. So that's what your message passing says. So if I have two different, say here you have two different objects, one is the student object, the other one is the fee receipt. These two objects can communicate each other. To define it more technically, so your message for an object is a request for execution of a procedure. Therefore, it will invoke a function in receiving an object that generates a desired result. Though the message concept definition seems to be a complicated, but it's a very simple concept where one object can communicate with another object just by invoking a function. So let me take a simple example here. I have an object called as a student and an object called as a fee receipt. Now this particular object has to invoke another function which belongs to an object called as a fee receipt. We know that an object has two properties. One is the data member, the other one is the member function. So I would like to invoke the member function of another object. So what we do is, now the student is going to pay a fee with his register number and with his admission details. Now your object communicates with another objects for a billing department to generate the fee receipt. So here the student pays the fee. Now pay fee is the function which is being invoked. Now object is going to invoke another function which is a part of another object, where this is an object fee receipt will invoke a function called as a pay fee to generate what is the amount that is being paid, what is the receipt number, and it prints the fee paid by the student. Now the student pays the fee. As a part of it, this has been invoked to another billing department called as a fee receipt. Now this billing department will generate the fee receipt with the fee receipt number and what is the amount being paid, and generates the bill with respect to that particular student. So one object is communicating with another object. The student pays the fee and requests to generate the fee receipt. So this is how one object can communicate with another object. The very important concept of your OOPs is your message passing, where two different objects can communicate with another by just invoking a function, so that the object generates the desired result of required object. So these are the different characteristics which are a part of your object oriented program. So we'll move on to the next one. That's what are the advantages of your object-oriented program. So you can see you have n number of advantages with respect to your object-oriented programming. The first and the foremost is your modular approach. So as we know that your object-oriented program itself is a modular approach which is used to design and develop a program using a concept called as a module. Why we use this modular approach is basically so you can develop a program in terms of a module in a shorter time, and these modules can be shared among n number of applications. Once a module has been created, the same modules can be shared among the different applications and you can also develop your modules in a shorter time. So this is the very important advantage of your OOPS, where OOPS provides a clear modular structure for program and where these modules can be shared among the different applications. The next advantage is the data security. And as we have discussed that you can expect this data security with the help of your encapsulation, where your external function cannot access and modify the data. The major priority of your object-oriented program, as I told you, is it always gives a priority to the data rather than the procedure. So the external functions will not be able to access or modify the data, and this you can achieve using your data encapsulation. The third advantage is having your data abstraction. As we know that only the essential features are being presented by hiding the background details. This will help to separate object specification from its object implementation. The object specifications are kept separated and object implementations are kept separated. So you do not present all the background details and you present only the essential details. So the next advantage of your object-oriented program is code duplication. It reduces the code duplication. So the linking the code and the object allows the objects to share a common code. So when you have two different objects and when you try to share the codes of those objects, they share the code. So it's just if you have two different modules and those one single module can be shared to another object, and that particular object can share or make use of the existing module. So it's just linking the code and object allows the object to share your common code. This is what you can expect from your message passing. The next advantage is your inheritance itself, where it reduces the complexity to develop the complex software. Since the properties of one class are being inherited to another class, you don't have to keep on creating the modules. What you can do is you can just develop a simple modules so that you reduce the complexity to develop a complex software. And the important advantage that what you can expect from your inheritance is your code reusability. When you have a code reusability, it reduces the software development time. Once a code or a module is being created, you do not have to repeat the same module again and again. The existing module can be shared among the different objects. You can reuse the same code for the multiple functions or for the multiple objects. So the same existing code can be reused again and again without recreating the same code. Very important advantage of your OOPS, where it's very simple to implement and easy to create. So with all these characteristics, above listed the characteristics, it becomes very easy to create and develop. So these are the some of the advantages or an important advantages of your object-oriented program. So when we have an advantages, certainly we should have a limitations of your object-oriented programming, and some of the limitations with respect to your object-oriented programming is your OOPS software definitely doesn't have set standards. Your programming has a set standards, but your OOPS software has not been defined with some set standards. The second limitation is classes are overly generalized. So in this sense, since your object oriented is a bottom-up approach where your lower level entities are combined to form a higher level entities, and they are generalized. That means any number of lower level modules can be combined together to form a high level one single entity. So this concept is totally generalized. It's not been restricted, it has been overly generalized, where any number of lower level entities can be combined together to form higher level entity. And since its object is any real-time entity, it's very simple to say that yes, an object can be integrated with to have your object-oriented program, or you can define the characteristics and behavior and write a program. Specifying it theoretically, it's very easy, but converting your real-time entity problem into an object-oriented model is a very difficult. So that's another limitation. So I can say that a car has a characteristics and behavior, but developing or converting that real-time entity into an object-oriented modeling is very difficult task. Inheritance and polymorphism are challenging to manage initially. So once it has been managed initially, then you can go ahead forward without any hurdles, but challenge is managing it initially is a quite difficult task. So for an object oriented program, you do not have a provision to write a flowcharts. And adaptability of writing a flowchart in OOPS using classes and objects are a quite difficult process. So these are the different limitations with respect to your OOPS. So we have discussed about the advantages and limitations. So certainly we have to discuss about what are its applications. So these are the few applications of your OOPS. Well, the first and the foremost one is your simulation and modeling, where your object oriented simulation has a greater initiative appeal in application because it is very easy to view your real world as being composed of objects. Then the second important application of your OOPS is real-time system, where your C++ with OOPS provides an effective environment for your embedded system. So embedded system is just a combination of your hardware and the software integrated together, where your C++ with OOPS provides an effective platform for your embedded system. So the other application is your object-oriented database, where your OOPS or your object-oriented programming allows an effective development to persist your C++ object to relational database. Your OOPS allows your developer to persist C++ objects to relational database. The next application is your neural network and parallel programming, where your OOPS codes supports plenty of math libraries for developing neural networks. As a part of parallel programming, it helps executing the code faster. So neural network is one important application where your OOPS code has a plenty of mathematical libraries that can support for developing your neural network. As a part of parallel programming, you can expect the code executed very faster. And the another important applications of your object oriented program is hypertext, hypermedia and expert text, where your OOP code makes suitable for various hypermedia approaches. So these are only the few applications of your object oriented programming. You can also list out with artificial intelligence as well. Even an artificial intelligence is also an application of your object oriented program. So the last part of this video is, as I had told you, that we have two different programming approaches. One is a procedure oriented programming and the other one is object oriented programming, where procedure oriented programming is shortly called as POP, procedure oriented programming. what makes the difference between your procedure oriented programming and object oriented programming? In the first year PUC, you guys might have written your programs using your procedure oriented program. When I say an object oriented program, certainly a class has to be there, an object has to be there. So in procedure oriented program, you don't make use of any class, or you don't create any class, or you don't create any object. So as a part of it, the very important difference between your object oriented program and procedure oriented program is where your object oriented program provides a priority only on data rather than the procedure, whereas procedure oriented program has emphasis on procedure rather than data. In the sense, coming to the procedure oriented program, its emphasis is only to see how a program can be executed, how a problem can be solved. It does not much worries about the data. It doesn't bothers about what happens to the data after the procedure. That means there is a lack of security to your data. A data can be accessed by any of the function and it can be modified. But in the object oriented programming, the emphasis is only on data rather than the procedure. They always keep track of what is the characteristics of your object, how the data has to be handled, how it has to be secured. So that's what we think always in terms of object oriented program. So object oriented program, emphasis is on data. In procedure oriented program, the emphasis is on procedure rather than data. Object oriented program follows the bottom up approach, wherein your lower level entities are combined together to form one higher level entity, and your procedure oriented program follows the top down approach, where your higher level entities are being broken down into a smaller lower level entities. Now your object oriented program divides your programming parts into an objects. A program is being divided in terms of a object, where in procedure oriented program, the program is being divided in terms of a function. And in the object oriented program, you can expect the security from the access specifiers. We have three different types of access specifiers. One is public, private and protected. And what is this access specifiers? We shall discuss that in the later videos. But you can expect a protection to your data using these access specifiers, and you do not have these access specifiers in procedure oriented program. So the next difference between object oriented program and procedure oriented program is you can have more security, where your data can be hidden. You can expect this security with the help of your access specifier, and in a procedure oriented program you cannot hide your data, so your data is less secured. The last difference between your object oriented program and the procedure oriented program is your object oriented program supports with a concept called as an operator overloading. Overloading is where it's a kind of one entity is being represented with many form. An operator can be represented in terms of a many form. Say you have a different types of operators, plus arithmetic operators, logical operators, relational operators. So those operators can be represented in many forms, and that operator overloading is being supported in object oriented program, and you do not have that provision in procedure oriented program, which do not supports your operator overloading in procedure oriented program. So this is the difference, primary difference between your object oriented programming and procedure oriented programming. Before I end up this video, so let me tell you which are the important questions that you can expect from this chapter. So the frequently asked questions for 5 marks is to explain the advantages of object oriented program, which we have discussed. And the other important question is define object oriented program. Write the limitations of object oriented program. So this will be asked again for 5 marks, where defining object oriented program carries 1 marks, and writing any 4 limitation carries 4 4 marks. Then the other question which is frequently asked is to explain the applications of OOPS. You can explain any 5 applications of OOPS, and any of these questions, I mean any of these characters which are related to your OOPS can be asked. What is an object? What is a class? How do you define a data abstraction? What is a data encapsulation? What is polymorphism? What is dynamic binding? What is message passing? So these are the different kinds of questions which can be asked for 1 marks. So, and you can also expect to write a difference between an object oriented program and procedure oriented program. So if you just go through this videos and the contents that are present in this video, it is more sufficient, where you can secure 7 marks from this chapter. So in the upcoming video I shall be starting with new chapter, that is classes and object. We shall discuss what is a class, how to create a class, how to create an object, and how do we make use of your member functions, how do we make use of your access specifiers to provide a security to your data. So that's all for this video. Thank you.